Welcome to Counting the Cost, Al Jazeera's business programme. I'm Lauren Taylor. Each week we'll bring you all the business and economic news from around the world. Coming up on the programme, traffic jam in Venezuela, tight currency controls slow down car production. A grave situation. Can American banks resurrect themselves? And a Russian manufacturer takes off at the Paris Airshow. 9 months into the global financial crisis, industry continues to suffer, and the automobile sector has been hit harder than most. In the last 8 weeks alone, 2 car-making giants, Chrysler and General Motors, have filed for bankruptcy. Luxury car sales have slumped, except in the Gulf region, and it's their petro-dollars that have recently fueled investment in the industry. A consortium, including Kuwaiti firms, took control of Aston Martin from Ford in a $1 billion deal in 2007. Abu Dhabi has invested in Daimler and Ferrari, and now Qatar may be about to sign a deal with the German giant Porsche. Owen Fay reports.
Should this deal go through, it will mark a major achievement for the Qatari government, because no other country has ever succeeded in pulling off a deal quite like this one. Porsche and Volkswagen were both founded before the Second World War, and in the decades since, they have been entirely controlled by the same 2 families, cousins of one another, and at times bitter rivals. They have sold shares before, but those have all been non-voting shares. Nobody outside the families has ever dictated how these 2 giants operate, until now. There are 2 deals under consideration, and if all goes as planned, Porsche will either merge with VW or take it over outright, and Qatar could then control as much as 25%. That stake could cost this country nearly $3 billion, and while it seems a strange time to invest in the auto industry, given today's economic climate, for this particular deal it makes a great deal of sense. Porsche sells about 100,000 cars each year and enjoys a turnover of $10 billion, but it's dwarfed by Volkswagen, the largest car manufacturer in Europe. It ships about 6 million cars every year and pulls in $130 billion. What's more, they both operate under specific German laws, designed just for them, which indemnify them from international market pressures. So clearly, these 2 companies continue to thrive, but they do so for very unique reasons, reasons which set them distinctly apart from their global competition. It might be tempting to try and draw a contrast between successful companies like this one on the one hand, and their American counterparts, which are in such a precarious state, on the other. But remember, the primary reason why GM and Chrysler got into so much trouble and had to file for bankruptcy protection is because they weren't giving customers what they wanted, which was increasingly cheaper, more fuel-efficient and environmentally friendly cars. But remember, those same qualities are hardly what Porsche is known for. In fact, it thrives by largely ignoring them, concentrating almost exclusively on the luxury car market. And the stability that market offers has put the Porsche directors in a position to try and take over their cousins at VW. But a takeover bid launched earlier this year failed and left Porsche with an enormous amount of debt, making it vulnerable. And that's where the Qataris come in. By shoring up Porsche, Doha provides the money to go after VW. And one way or the other, the final deal will create a super company which builds on its rich history, enjoys all the privileges of the German government, and now brings to the table a major Arabic influence. Owen Fay, Al Jazeera, Doha.
Now, last week we tackled the impact of privatisation in the current economic climate. But how are nationalised economies like Venezuela's getting on? Well, in the decade that President Hugo Chavez has been in power, he has steadily reduced the role of the private sector in the nation's economy. His self-styled socialist revolution has overseen the nationalisation of sectors such as oil, finance, farming and telecommunications. But is the auto industry paying the price for these policies? Let's cross over to the Americas, where Shihab Ratanzi has the details.
Thanks. The Venezuelan government imposed import quotas in 2008 in a bid to encourage large car manufacturers to assemble their automobiles at home. But these manufacturers are now complaining that they can't afford to pay for car components from overseas. The government is actively seeking to reduce the sale of imported cars and expects a further drop this year after demand fell more than 50% in 2008. But it's not only imported cars that have been affected. Overall, year-on-year sales have slumped by 58% to just 10,127 units. The government says it will give $2.5 billion to the car industry to help offset the cost of importing parts. But as Dima Khatib reports, that money may come too late for automakers and consumers.
In a matter of 24 hours, these big pieces of metal will be shaped into a brand new car. Parts from around the world are shipped to this factory in the Venezuelan city of Valencia, where workers assemble them using the latest technology. In previous years, General Motors used to import cars to Venezuela as well as assemble them here. But after upgrading its facilities, the company now has the capacity to produce up to 450 cars a day in this assembly plant, the biggest in the country, hoping to meet the growing demand. But despite that, the plant is facing troubles.
It will soon be shut down temporarily, not because of General Motors' financial trouble in the United States, but because of local economic and legal circumstances.
The problem for GM here isn't cash flow. The company sits on a growing pile of Venezuelan bolivars, but its debt to foreign parts suppliers has swelled to $1.2 billion. The problem is, dollars are hard to come by in Venezuela. Government currency controls have curtailed access to the greenback since 2003 to prevent capital from flowing out of the country.
It's a fact that the government is giving preference to local manufacturers. Venezuela requires an import license for imported assembled vehicles into the country. And this year so far the government hasn't issued any licenses, so they are in theory supporting the local manufacturers. The problem is the timing.
The government promised to release US dollars as soon as it can.
The median price of a barrel of oil is about $43 US. Last year it closed at $95 US, so we obviously have half of what we had of foreign currencies.
While GM and other car manufacturers wait for their dollars, consumers in Venezuela wait for their cars. We have no vehicles, reads the sign at a car dealer's shop in Caracas. Lack of supply means that Venezuelans have to sign up well in advance to get a brand new car.
I have been trying to buy a car since the 18th of February.
Some Venezuelans who signed up for a car in 2008 are still waiting in line. This in a country already suffering from severe traffic congestion. But for many in this oil-rich country, the incentive to buy cars is big, especially since 40 liters of petrol cost less than buying 1 liter of water. Dima Khatib, Jazeera, Venezuela.
After the break, back from the dead, are banks bouncing back from the bailout?